What you're about to discover is the deadliest shipwreck in American history, and it happened just weeks after the Civil War ended. Most Americans have never heard of it. What would you do if you had 20 minutes to escape a burning ship in complete darkness? On April 27, 1865, over 2,000 Union soldiers had to answer that question. They had just survived the horrors of Confederate prison camps. They were going home. Instead, they boarded a floating death trap. This is the SS Sultana. And what happened that night killed more Americans than the Titanic, the Lusitania, and Pearl Harbor's USS Arizona combined. The SS Sultana was a Mississippi River steamboat. Built in 1863, she was designed to carry 376 passengers. On April 27, 1865, she was carrying over 2,400. Most were Union soldiers, former prisoners of war, finally heading home after years in Confederate prison camps like Andersonville and Cahaba. The Civil War had ended just 18 days earlier. Abraham Lincoln had been assassinated 12 days before. These men had survived hell. They were hours from reunion with their families. At 2 a.m., the Sultana was 7 miles north of Memphis, Tennessee. The boilers were overworked. The ship was dangerously overloaded. Deep inside the engine room, a crack was spreading through one of the boilers. What happened next would become America's worst maritime disaster and its most forgotten tragedy. To understand this disaster, you need to understand the corruption that caused it. The SS Sultana's captain, J. Cass Mason, was facing bankruptcy. His ship needed expensive boiler repairs. In Memphis, Union Army officer Captain Reuben Hatch had a problem too. He was responsible for transporting thousands of newly freed Union POWs back north, and he was taking bribes. A deal was struck. Captain Mason would receive $5 per enlisted man and $10 per officer transported. But there was a catch: he had to take all of them. On one ship, Mason agreed. The Sultana's legal capacity was 376 passengers. They loaded 2,427, plus 200 crew members, civilian passengers, 100 hogsheads of sugar, and a dozen mules and horses. One of the ship's 4 boilers had a dangerous bulge. Instead of proper repairs, they simply patched it with a metal plate. It was a temporary fix. For a permanent problem, the soldiers didn't know any of this. They were packed onto every deck, hanging from railings, sleeping in shifts because there wasn't room to lie down. Many were emaciated from prison camp starvation, weak, sick, desperate to get home. The Sultana departed Memphis at 11 p.m. on April 26, 1865. The ship was riding dangerously low in the water from the weight. The Mississippi River was swollen from spring floods. The current was treacherous. But Captain Mason had another problem: the patched boiler. Steam pressure in a riverboat boiler operates at about 140 to 150 psi. The patch was never designed to hold that pressure for extended periods. As the ship struggled upriver against the current, the engines worked harder. The boilers strained. In the engine room, crew members reported hearing strange sounds, creaking metal, hissing steam, but the Sultana kept going. At 1 a.m., they stopped briefly at Helena, Arkansas, to offload a passenger. Some soldiers disembarked to stretch on shore. Private William McFarland later wrote, "I noticed steam escaping from the middle boiler. I told a crew member. He said they knew about it. They knew, and they kept going." By 2 a.m. on April 27th, the Sultana was 7 miles north of Memphis. Most of the 2,400 soldiers were asleep, packed together on every available surface. Deep in the engine room, the metal patch on the boiler was failing. Steam pressure was building. At approximately 2 a.m., the metal patch gave way. The boiler exploded. The explosion ripped through the center of the ship. Superheated steam at 300 degrees Fahrenheit blasted through the deck. Hundreds of soldiers sleeping directly above the boilers were killed instantly, scalded to death or blown apart by the blast. The smokestacks crashed down, crushing more men. The ship's structure collapsed. 3 of the 4 boilers exploded in succession. Survivor Chester Berry recalled, "The explosion sounded like 1,000 muskets firing. Men were blown into the air like leaves. The deck split in half. Soldiers in their sleep were thrown into the Mississippi River. But the horror had only begun. Within seconds, the wooden superstructure caught fire. The Sultana became an inferno. Men trapped in the wreckage screamed as flames consumed them. Those who could move had one choice: jump into the dark, freezing Mississippi River. Let me walk you through those final minutes.
2 a.m. Boiler explodes.
Hundreds killed instantly. 2:02 a.m. Fire spreads across all decks. Ship splitting in half. 2:05 a.m. Hundreds jump into the river. Most can't swim. 2:10 a.m. The ship is fully engulfed. Men trapped inside burn alive. 2:15 a.m. The Sultana drifts toward the Arkansas shore, still burning. 2:27 a.m. The ship sinks in shallow water near Marion, Arkansas. In 27 minutes, over 1,800 people died. Imagine this. You're in complete darkness. The water is freezing, 52 degrees. You're surrounded by burning debris and drowning men. You hear thousands of people screaming. You're weak from months of starvation in a prison camp, and you have to swim over a mile to shore. This was the reality for 2,000 people. Most soldiers couldn't swim. Many were too weak to stay afloat. They grabbed onto anything: wooden doors, debris, bodies, each other. In their desperation, men pulled each other underwater, fighting for flotation. Survivor William Lugenbiel remembered, "I saw men clinging together in groups, drowning each other. I heard a man praying, then silence." Some soldiers made it to debris piles and waited for rescue. Others were swept away by the current. The burning wreck drifted downstream, lighting up the river for miles. People on shore in Memphis 7 miles south saw the glow and thought it was a forest fire. Rescue boats didn't arrive for over 2 hours. By then, the river was filled with bodies. Men who survived the explosion and the fire drowned in the cold Mississippi. Men who survived the drowning died of hypothermia, clinging to wreckage. By sunrise, rescue boats from Memphis were pulling bodies from the river. They would continue finding bodies for weeks, some as far south as Vicksburg, Mississippi, 200 miles away. The final death toll: 1,800 to 1,900 people dead. Only 600 survived. It was and remains the deadliest maritime disaster in United States history. More Americans died on the Sultana than on the Titanic. More than the USS Arizona at Pearl Harbor. More than the USS Indianapolis. But here's the tragedy within the tragedy. The explosion happened on April 27, 1865. The story broke on April 28th. But America wasn't paying attention. Because the day before, on April 26th, John Wilkes Booth, Lincoln's assassin, had been captured and killed. The newspapers were full of that story. The Sultana was buried on page 3, and then it was forgotten entirely. When investigators examined what was left of the Sultana, they found evidence of systemic failure. The patched boiler was never properly repaired. The ship was loaded to 700% capacity. Captain Reuben Hatch had been taking bribes. The official investigation concluded: criminal overcrowding, inadequate boiler repair, corruption in the Army transport system, and no safety inspections. But here's what makes this even worse. Nobody was held accountable. Captain Mason died in the explosion. Captain Hatch was court-martialed, but the charges were dropped due to lack of evidence. The shipping company declared bankruptcy. The survivors received no compensation. Many were so traumatized they never spoke about it again. The reason it was so deadly? These men had survived Andersonville, Cahaba, the worst Confederate prison camps. They were emaciated, weakened, sick. When they hit the freezing water, their bodies simply couldn't survive the shock. Could it happen today? Modern maritime law requires strict passenger capacity limits, regular boiler inspections, life jackets for all passengers, and emergency drills. All because of disasters like the Sultana. Today, very few Americans know about the SS Sultana. No major Hollywood film has been made about it. It's barely mentioned in history textbooks. A small memorial stands in Marion, Arkansas, near where the ship sank. Another in Knoxville, Tennessee. But for the scale of the tragedy, 800 dead, it remains America's most forgotten disaster. Why? Timing. The assassination of Lincoln dominated the news. Victims. They were common soldiers, not wealthy passengers like the Titanic. Location. The disaster happened on an inland river, not the dramatic open ocean. And perhaps because it revealed uncomfortable truths about Union Army corruption. But the men on the Sultana deserve to be remembered. They survived the Civil War. They survived prison camps. They were hours from home, and they died because of greed. The wreck of the SS Sultana was never recovered. It lies buried somewhere beneath the Mississippi River. The river has changed course several times since 1865. 1,800 souls. Many were never identified. Families never knew what happened to their sons, fathers, and brothers. They just disappeared. This is America's deadliest maritime disaster, the tragedy that history forgot. But now you know their story. If this story affected you, please hit the like button to help others discover this forgotten American tragedy. Comment below. Did you learn about the SS Sultana in school? Why do you think this disaster has been forgotten? Subscribe for more deep dives into history's most devastating maritime disasters. And please share this video. These 1,800 soldiers deserve to be remembered. They survived the war. They shouldn't be forgotten by history. Thank you for watching.